Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Adobe Live, the daily creative challenge. It's so great to be here on Thursday, streaming live for you guys for the daily photography challenge. That's right. We're doing something a little different on this challenge. We're doing photography, and for the first time, we're doing both Lightroom and Photoshop. So, and unfortunately, it's coming to an end tomorrow. So we've been doing this for like 2 weeks now. It's been awesome. You guys have been great with the challenges. You've been great doing the work and submitting the work. It's been amazing looking at the results. I love seeing the images that you guys put up that are different than the ones I give you, because that just gives me something new to look at. I've seen my images already, so when I get to see new images, that just makes my day. All right, so for those of you who are new, first time watching this, and if you're watching this on the replay, thanks for watching the replay. This is the daily creative challenge, and for these past couple of weeks, we've been doing one for photographers, or photography. So that means that if you are taking pictures and want to make your pictures look better, that's what this challenge is all about. So once again, thanks everyone for being here. Hilda, Sam, Valentine, Christy, I see you guys, see Adobe Live over in San Francisco. Lindsay, Susan, Kathleen. Kathleen's in the house. Welcome, Kathleen. Valentine, Ken, Patty, everybody's here. Anthony's here. Austin's here. Everybody's here. All right, so thanks for being here from all over the country and all over the world. And let's, for those who are new, let's go ahead and show you what you can do to get started. So first and foremost, if you're just joining us, even if the challenge is nearing the end, you can still jump in. You can still go to behance.net/challenge/Photoshop, go to that URL, and that'll take you to this page. And from here, you can go ahead and jump in. Well, actually, it's probably too late to jump in, but you can go in and see the challenges that we've done so far. So each day you'll receive a challenge. You can join the community chat, which if you're watching this live or watching this on Behance on the replay, that's what this chat is all about. That I just called off and gave a bunch of shout outs to people that are watching live. And also you can watch our daily live show, which is what we're doing right now. And then finally, you can share your work. So these are all the challenges that have been unlocked over the last couple of weeks, with one more to go tomorrow. Today's challenge is all about local adjustments. So you'll go in and we'll talk about how to adjust your photos. I'm going to give you two examples, actually. I'm going to give you one that, or maybe three. I'm going to give you one that I submitted so you guys can download and play with, but I'm going to give you a different one because that one won't take too long. So I'm just going to give you a couple of varieties of examples to play with or to see, and you'll have that one to play with plus yours. And we'll see how to do it. So you can download the files, you can watch the video, and of course, participate. Once you're done with your challenge, you can sign up for Discord if you haven't already. Here's the URL for it. There's a Photoshop Discord. This is the one we're talking about today. And this is where you would go in to engage with the community after the stream. So if you're not watching it live and you're saying, well, the chat's not really doing much for me right now, then you can go into Discord and chat with us live. Anytime, 24/7, post images, get feedback, so forth and so on. And also, you can upload your images to Behance using the hashtag #PSDailyChallenge. I searched for the results that way, and I see some cool ones already from the ones that were submitted this week and last week. And I add them to my mood board. I add the ones, let me refresh my mood board. I add them to my mood board because you guys have been doing a great job with your challenges. So these are some of my favorites from the challenges we've done thus far. All right, so without further ado, let's head over to today's challenge, which is all about local adjustments. So I'm gonna head over to Lightroom Classic because that's where I work. Now again, you can do this in Lightroom, the new one, the cloud-based version. The photo is in both places, and your local adjustments in the new Lightroom are called out here as tools on the side. So you have a adjustment brush, you have a linear filter, and you have a radial filter. Those are the three local adjustments. And of course, in Lightroom Classic, you select your image and you head over to the develop module, and your local adjustments are all here. So the same linear gradient, radial gradient, and the adjustment brush. So that's where you would begin your work for local adjustments. But again, as we always do, Whereas I always like to start with, we do the things that are global first before we worry about drilling in on local stuff. So for example, lens corrections. I'm not sure if this one will correct much because this one's actually a shot from a drone and it doesn't really know, it can't identify what this drone is. So that may be one where it did not work. I could try auto, doesn't do much, or I can just say, you know what, go to the default, and I can tell you that it is a Mavic. It's a DJI. There we go, DJI Mavic. Now they don't have the Mavic Air, but the Mavic Pro is pretty close. So even if your camera wasn't detected by default, here's a way that you can go in and tell it to do a lens correction based on the camera you knew you shot it with. And so this was shot with, I believe, my Mavic Air. All right, so now let's go ahead and go to basic. And again, there won't be a raw profile because this is not a raw image, but I can go ahead and hit auto and make an auto adjustment to this photo. And that's kind of really bringing in, it might, and actually in my opinion, it made it a little too dark because it really lowered the exposure by like almost 2 stops. So I'm gonna pull the exposure back up a bit because I just think that was too dark. It just went a little overboard. Yesterday, I saw someone ask the question, what's the difference between vibrance and saturation? So saturation is literally the amount of color. So all the colors that are in there, make them less saturated all the way down to taking the colors out to more saturated to where you even overdo it. And this is overdone in this case. So that's what saturation is. And well, then what's vibrance? Vibrance is a slight variation of it where it just adds more punch to the image. So even if I take it all the way to the right, it doesn't go crazy like saturation did. If I take it all the way to the left, it will take out the color, but it's just adding a little bit more punch to the image. Now, when do I use one versus the other? I use saturation on landscapes, travel, basically anything that's not people. I use vibrance on anything that has people in it. And why the difference? Because saturation can negatively impact the skin tones. So it can make people more, orange, green, yellow, or just like go crazy with the skin. We don't want that. Whereas vibrance protects the skin tones. It doesn't go crazy on skin. If it's a landscape or not a shot with people in it, then I could use either one or both. Because maybe I want the colors to be a little bit more saturated and a little bit more punchy. Or maybe I just want them to be a little bit more punchy. It really depends on image by image. So for non-people, I use one or the other or both. For people, I never use saturation. I only use vibrance. Okay, so now we've gotten the overall image adjusted, and this is kind of the colors. And by the way, we could use a white balance adjustment. We could say that it was, let's see what cloudy does versus daylight. See, daylight makes the water a little bluer, and that's what I like. So I'm gonna go with daylight for the white balance in this one. And then last but not least, I see the highlights being blown out in that little umbrella there on the top or whatever that structure is. By the way, we're looking down on top of a lighthouse. Or not a lighthouse, but we're just looking down on top of something. Maybe that's a lighthouse, can't remember. And we can just drop the whites down so that our highlights aren't completely blown out. Okay, so now that we got the global adjustments done, this is where your local adjustments go. So with that said, you have your 3 local adjustments. Now in this case, this would be mostly adjustment brush kind of stuff because I'm not trying to gradually do something from one direction to another. That's what the linear gradient would be. And I'm not, in this case, I'm probably not trying to make a radial adjustment unless I was trying to make the center of the image stand out. So we could play with that as well. But anyway, let's start with the adjustment brush. And you'll notice when you go to the adjustment brush, you have the ability to choose presets. So you have temperature all the way down to color. All of these I have are third-party ones, but your built-in ones will be temperature all the way down to color. So for example, if I wanted the water to even be bluer, let's say I just really like really nice blue water, then I could go to temperature, for example, and I could actually make the temperature bluer. I can go all the way to the blue, and then when I come over to my image, if I use my bracket key, actually, I can make the brush bigger. I actually have a brush that non-destructively brushes blue. it brushes that blue temperature across my image. Now, you have to be careful of the edges because it's starting to affect the edges if I go too far with a big brush. And so I could go in and say, well, Terry, that's crazy. That's way too blue. I know, but what this lets me do is see any areas I missed. So first I go ahead and brush it all in, then make my adjustments from there. All right, so let's go in there, just get that water line. Now, if you went a little crazy overboard on the edge there like I did, then you can hold down your Option key to subtract it. So I can say, no, 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 stay within the lines, don't go over the lines, don't go over there. Okay, so now that I've done that and I say, well, it's a little too unrealistically blue. That looks like someone poured blue ink in the water. That's a little too much. Then I can just back off the temperature because now that adjustment's been made, I can do whatever I want with any of these adjustments. So I can say, that was too blue, let's not go so blue. Let's make it a little more realistic, nice ocean blue, even though this is a river. And I saw a spot I missed, by the way. Yep, there's a spot I missed. There you go. And then you can adjust to your heart's content. So I can say, just make that slightly bluer, not crazy blue, so forth and so on. Now, you'll notice that you'll see a dot, which also, if you hover over it, that dot is showing you where you started. Like, in other words, it's showing you the point for this adjustment. So you could right click on that point, you can duplicate it or delete it. And if you delete it, it just means that adjustment goes away. That's what we mean by this is non-destructive. You can always get rid of that point. But now let's say I want a new point. I want to be able to make the grass greener. I was making the grass greener on the other side, right? I want the grass greener here. I don't want it to look all dull and burned out or, you know, it looks like the sun really attacked the grass here. Well, if I start painting here, it's going to just make it blue again because that's the adjustment I'm still working on. So that's where we head back over to the panel. And you'll notice that there is the ability to click New. That means make a new adjustment. Don't edit the one that you're currently working on. So when I click New, now I'm starting from scratch. So I could say, well, instead of adjusting the temperature, let's just go to color for the preset. Now, why do I like the presets? Because the presets simply say, turn off everything except the one thing you just told it to do. So set everything back to 0, except color. And then in color, I could say, well, what color do I want my grass to be? I can come over here and pick a green. I can always adjust it later, by the way. But I can start with that green, and then because I told it new, I can come over here and start, yeah, that green's a little too green, but I can come over here and start painting green in. Don't worry, we'll adjust the green because that green's a little crazy green. It's not a realistic green, but we can go in and kind of just add some more green to the grass there. All right, that's the wrong shade of green, but that's okay because now that that adjustment's been made, we can go in and change it to a different shade of green. So we can go in and say, maybe something around, yeah, that's more realistic, right about in there. Just trying to get the right shade here. Something more like that, because I'm looking at the bushes. And I'm trying to kind of just dial it into that color. Not too much of that color. Right about there. And of course, this will all depend on your monitor, so you might be seeing it even slightly different than what I'm seeing here. But there you go. So now, with that adjustment made, even though the first adjustment was just temperature, the second adjustment was just color, all of those other sliders are fair game with each adjustment. So even though I started with color, that doesn't mean I can't adjust the exposure, can't adjust the contrast, can't adjust the shadows and highlights or anything else. So I can say, bring the exposure down a bit too, make that grass look a bit more realistic by dropping the exposure at the same time. So even though I started with color, doesn't mean the other sliders are all still there and fair game. And if I want to switch back to the other adjustment, I click on its control point. Now that I'm back to that adjustment, same thing. If I want the water darker, adjust the exposure of the water there. So that way you're making your main subject stand out more. So you can toggle back and forth between those two control points and make whatever adjustments you want. You want a third control point? Click New, choose Color, and now you're making a third control point for this area up here. And that way, each control, I don't know, I'm sloppy with my brushing, but each control point is now something different. So that third adjustment, I can say bring down that color, bring down that exposure, and also adjust that color as well to maybe something not as bright. And now I've got that control point, this control point, this control point, and you can have as many as you want. You don't want a control point anymore, delete it. You want to reset the control point, reset the sliders. You want to do whatever you want, it's all non-destructive. And that is the beauty of working with local adjustments. You're not adjusting the overall photo, you're adjusting things that need to be adjusted in specific areas. Now, like I said, there are 3 local adjustments. So I'm running out of time actually. Let's go quickly. So the next one is the radial adjustment. The radial adjustment, let's say that I set that one to exposure to start with because I can do anything. And I could say that, hey, I want a radial adjustment. I don't know if I can do it from the center out. Let's see. Nope, that does not work. Or did it? It did. I think it did work. Hang on. No, it did not work. Okay, I was trying to do it from the center out like we always do. But let's just move that up. Move that out that way and then down this way. And then I can move it to the center. So now I'm saying for this adjustment, adjust the exposure of just this area of the circle. So I use this a lot to relight photos. And you also have the ability to toggle between invert. So now it's darkening everything else in the photo except that spot. So keeping that spot where it is and making everything outside the circle, whatever you choose in your sliders. So that's a radial adjustment. Okay, this is amazing. I did not know I could do this stuff so easily in Lightroom. This is why I use Lightroom every single day, because why do stuff that's hard? In other words, if I can do it in Lightroom, why not? All right, and of course, when I can't, I don't mind going to Photoshop. So here's another example. This is one that you don't have, but I'm just going to show you quickly how we would do something to this photo. So this photo needs a lot. I'm not going to go through everything, but let's go ahead and first do a quick auto. Ooh, there's a sidewalk there. I had no idea. Let's go in and do local adjustment brush. And the same thing, or you know what, we did adjustment brush. Let's do linear gradient next. And let's do linear gradient and temperature and exposure. I'm just going to lower the exposure. So a linear gradient works like this. From whatever direction you drag in, it drags in that direction 360 degrees. So you can drag it any way you want, as far as you want, and it adjusts that, it makes that adjustment linear or gradual in that direction. So if I drag the temperature all the way over, it's making the sky the bluest at the top and fades out. Again, if I go to the adjustment brush, I'm saying, hey, let's adjust the temperature of the water there as well. And I could go in and start saying, hey, we don't want our water to not be blue. We want our water to be nice and blue here. So you can easily change the color of something in Lightroom with an adjustment brush like so. And by the way, everything I'm doing here in Lightroom also works in Lightroom on your mobile devices. So if you have Lightroom on your phone, and I know I'm being sloppy with the painting, but I'm running for time. If you have Lightroom on your phone, you have Lightroom on your tablets, you can do everything I'm doing here as well, even if you don't have a computer. All right, so next up, let's say that I want to adjust the exposure. And I'm going to make the exposure brighter, and same thing. I can say, hey, let's make these trees a little brighter. I can brush exposure all in this area. I can even light that sidewalk, light everything here. And this is where a global adjustment wouldn't make sense because you wouldn't want everything to get brighter. But this way you can control exactly what areas of your photo get bright, get dark, get color, get so forth and so on. And again, with every adjustment, I can say, well, that's too bright. Tone it down a bit just in that area. So only that area gets affected while everything else stays the same. This is why local adjustments rock. All right, and again, you got the same local adjustments on iPhone, Android, iPad, Lightroom as well. So, exporting. So once again, let me go back to your photo. Your photo was this one. We can go up to our file menu. I have a preset. This is why we use presets. So I can just quickly go to export, choose my 4DCC. That will make the preset or that will make the export for me. And one last thing, if you wanted to do this in Photoshop, let's say you're just not comfortable in Lightroom yet, you can do everything I just showed you in the camera raw filter. So here's the same image. If I were to want to do it non-destructively, I would first go to filter and convert for smart filters. So we're in Photoshop, convert for smart filters, converts that layer into a smart object. Then I would go to filter, camera raw filter, the same auto tone, the same ability to move the exposure up, the same ability to grab my adjustment brush, the same. What I don't have though is I don't think I have the presets. Yeah, I don't think I have the presets. But anyway, I can move my temperature slider over and ooh, that's a big brush. Let's tone it down. And I'm doing the same exact thing you saw me do in Lightroom. And I'll dial in the color to get it just right. But here we go, same local adjustments, whether I'm in Photoshop or Lightroom, because both Camera Raw and the Develop module in Lightroom is the exact same thing. So again, I can make the water bluer, greener, darker, whatever I want. Make a new one, so click New. Now I'm adjusting, let's put this back to 0. Double click puts it back to 0, by the way. Let's choose a green. Choose a slightly darker green. And now I'm adjusting the grass to be greener. And then I can go in and drop the exposure down on that as well. Doesn't matter where you do it. Photoshop, Lightroom, Camera Raw filter, Lightroom's Develop module, you're doing the exact same thing. So now when I click OK, the reason we did that as a smart filter layer first is because if you ever want to go back and make changes to what you just did, you can double click on that layer, double click on Camera Raw filter and get right back to your same adjustments. So you have the same control points that you can go in. If I were to go in and grab my, my adjustment brush, there's one control point, there's another control point. Adjustment brush, linear filter, radial filter, same exact thing. Cancel out. All right. So with that said, and in Photoshop, you would do your, I was doing it from the keyboard, sorry. You would do your export, quick JPEG, or save for web. 1080 on the longest edge. And save it out. And then tell it where to save it, what to call it, and away it goes. And then upload it with the hashtag PS Daily Challenge. Wow, amazing! Thanks, Kirsty. Very process-driven information series. You're welcome. All right, process-driven, analytically informative series. That I've never heard anything I've done described that way, but thank you. Glad you guys are liking this lesson. Again, it's just so much fun to have your photos. And so what I want you guys to walk away with from this challenge is never accept what just comes out of the camera, because rarely is what just comes out of the camera perfect. You can always make it better. And that's what we're doing today. So with that said, I want to say thank you for everyone watching, and stay tuned for more Adobe Live. And I'm going to say goodbye until tomorrow. Cheers, everybody. Have a great one.